Police are searching for the suspects behind a shooting that claimed the lives of 2 people outside the Randburg Magistrate's Court yesterday. The couple were witnesses in an alleged 2018 police torture case involving 4 officers. One of the victims in yesterday's shooting was set to face cross-examination today. The state has now asked for the accused in the assault matter to have their hands tested for gunpowder residue and for their cell phones to be seized. Let's unpack the story further. We're joined this morning by Willem Els, who is a researcher from the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. And just some clarity for our viewers. The woman who was gunned down yesterday, she was the one who was allegedly kidnapped. She was accused of being involved in a robbery at her employer's residence. She was then kidnapped, tortured, allegedly held overnight, and then released by officers. And that is what this trial stems from, right? The police are stopping short of calling what happened yesterday a hit film, but all of the evidence points in that direction.
Good morning to you. Yeah, you rightly said that there's a lot of speculation still going on with this case because it's still unfolding. But as you rightly mentioned, it started off some 5 years ago, where this lady was in a suspect, and after the alleged torture, she then laid charges against these police officers. They were arrested, and then now you have a second case where these policemen now have to stand trial for assault GBH on her. Now, from my understanding, she already testified, so that testimony has already been captured in court. The challenge now is there was no time to cross-examine her. So that is where the case was at this stage, and then she was then shot down in front of the courthouse just before the proceedings. And as you said, also now it seems that the accused, the 4 accused policemen, are also now suspects, as the court ordered that their firearms must be confiscated and sent for ballistic testing, but also that their hands must be swapped for residue tests.
Yeah, but in the meantime, this woman and her husband gunned down in broad daylight, and more than that, in the precinct of the Randburg Magistrate's Court, right? Is there any way, Willem, that this could have been done differently? For example, are you alarmed that in the first place they were walking into court, that they were attending court without any sign of personal protection?
You know, it's a very difficult situation. You know, you've got thousands of accused that appear in court every day, thousands of witnesses, and there's just no way that the police can provide protection to all of them. So yes, there is a protection unit for that, where they have the witness protection program, where certain witnesses are then taken up and protected. But unfortunately, so because of the dynamics and because of the sheer volume of witnesses every day, it's just impossible for the police to do that. And this is unfortunate. You know, it just demonstrates the brazenness of the assailants, but also, you know, the disregard or for law and order and respect towards law and order, because it seems that there's no fear for consequences, as they can do it there. You know, in front of every courthouse, you've got some CCTV cameras, you got a lot of policemen around because they are coming to attend court or to work in court. So it was actually very brazen. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, you talk about witness protection. Of course, this case stems from 2018. And if indeed this woman and her family were to go into witness protection, that would be an awfully long time, right? Among the several questions that have been raised in the wake of this shocking incident yesterday, one of them is probably just around the pace of the criminal justice system in our country. Why was the case at this stage of her now coming to be cross-examined 5 years later?
Yeah, indeed. You know, South Africa is currently being overwhelmed. You know, we're such a criminal society at the moment, with so many cases where the policemen and the police officers that are investigating these cases are overwhelmed, but also where the judiciary is overwhelmed with the sheer amount of cases. We just don't have the capacity to effectively and swiftly push through all these cases. But there are different dynamics when it comes to a court case. Although, we haven't followed the court case from 2018, so we can't say what all the procedures were, whether there were applications and what applications were there, etc., and what happened in the case. So sometimes these cases can take a very long time, depending on what is unfolding in the case and also the strategy of the defense.
Yeah, correct. Among the other questions, of course, is the issue of security. And we've discussed that at length this morning. Security in the precinct. We know that there is generally security inside the courtroom when cases are ongoing. But this is an issue that presiding officers have raised several times, right? And many of them will deal with incredibly sensitive cases. We think about cases involving gang bosses in the Western Cape and in other parts of the country as well. Those come to mind. Is there enough security in general for officers of the court, not only inside court, but indeed as they leave the courthouse, go to their cars, drive home, get home?
Unfortunately, I don't think that is the case. If you look at the recent case where the lead investigating officer was assassinated near Hammanskraal, that's just one occasion. The Charles Kinnear case is another one, where we see that policemen themselves, the investigating officers, are coming under attack. But also in the past there have been incidents where some magistrates have been killed. If we remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, one of the magistrates of the Bagat case, so-called Bagat cases, was also assassinated. So that is a challenge. It poses a challenge because I don't think the police simply have the capacity to protect each and every judge and each and every investigating officer. And the criminals, of course, they are taking advantage of that. And it's a lot of intimidation that's taking place because now future witnesses will be intimidated. They will be scared to come and testify. But also your investigating officers will not be as brazen and strong in their investigations because of fear of repercussions. Yeah, absolutely. It raises questions around organized crime in our country, Willem, yet again. And it's even more alarming, right, if indeed this attack yesterday came from inside the ranks of police. Unfortunately so. Like I said, it's still a lot of speculation about that, but it is very alarming that might have happened. The problem that we're having, you mentioned organized crime. Your organized crime is becoming so rampant. And the sad story about that is your organized crime syndicates, they cannot effectively operate without effective protection from state-embedded actors. So corruption plays a big role in how our society has been captured now by these organized crime syndicates. And they more or less have their free way because there's very little fear for consequences because of all the flaws in our system. Yeah, it's incredibly worrying indeed. I wonder, Willem, while we have you on the line, whether you'd be able to weigh in as well on issues around the use of force by police. And this is an important question as we build up to the festive season, right? We're seeing a lot more criminality from October to December, as is the trend. And you talked about, the challenges that we face within the justice system. And the response by police can also be sort of whittled down to the challenges within the police force as well, and the levels of force being used by police. That's correct. It boils down to different things. In the first place, the policeman will always be measured according to the common man. So would a common man have acted in that way? And then the court goes according to that perception. So we must just understand also when it comes to the use of force. I think maybe it boils down to training, but it boils down to policies. It boils down to a lot of different things that are challenging, current challenges within the police that are trying to rectify, but they are experiencing challenges with. And that is, whenever a police officer has to decide to use force instead of, in the case of drawing his firearm and use his firearm, he has to make that decision within a split second. and then it takes the courts 5, 6, 7 years to decide whether he made the right decision. So there's a lot of pressure on our law enforcement agencies and policemen to make the right decision when to use force. Now, the counterpart of that, sometimes policemen are getting killed because they are too scared or they're uncertain whether they have to use their firearms or they can use their firearms. So it is really a very sad situation at the moment where the policemen are caught up between can we do that and can we not do that. But on the other hand, also you have your rogue elements that tend to use force and excessive force, and by doing that, they're also jeopardizing the perception of the public towards the police, and that they are violent in their actions, where the majority of them, we believe, are not, and they're trying to be very good policemen.
Willem Els is a researcher with the Institute for Security Studies. Willem, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And the topic of our discussion this morning, of course, around police searching for those suspects behind a shooting. 2 people shot and killed outside the Randburg Magistrates Court just yesterday.